Hello, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and I have a tutorial that you can do as a single canvas. So if you want to paint this on one canvas, I'm demonstrating it on a 16 by 20, by the way, or this design can be divided up into two canvases. So this can actually be a couples painting where you and a partner can both paint the design and it can meet in the middle. You both can do it on the 16 by 20, but you can also each get an 11 by 14, for example. So these are two 11 by 14s, and you can put them together, and the design meets right in the middle. And you can do this on any canvas size. The design works on 8 by 10s. You can do it on two 16 by 20s. It's up to you what you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and go over the brushes that I used for this tutorial. I used a 3/4 inch flat wash brush, a number 4 round brush. I used a toothbrush to splatter out the little tiny stars that are in the sky. If you don't want to use a toothbrush, you can just flick one of the bigger brushes. I also used a white paint pen, not shown, but I used the white paint pen for the little sparkle stars. And the colors, it's kind of a limited color palette, although there are colors that you can eliminate if you want to make it more simple. So I used phthalo blue, light blue permanent, turquoise, titanium white, Mars black, burnt umber, quinacridone magenta. We're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing I did was I loaded my palette with titanium white, light blue permanent, turquoise, phthalo blue, and black. Those are the colors that are going to be used for the blended background. But first, we're going to go ahead and kind of talk about if you're doing this on two canvases versus one. You're doing literally the same thing, only one you're doing it on separate canvases. So if you're doing it on two canvases, we have a heart that's going to be drawn in the middle. So you're going to put your canvases together, and with a pencil, you're going to draw a heart. So that heart is going to help us with the background because it's this blended radiating background that's going around a bright white heart that's right in the center of the painting. So if you're doing this on one canvas, go ahead and lay your canvas horizontally and figure out where the middle is. So this is a 16 by 20. So 10 inches is my center, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a vertical line to mark the center. So if you are doing this on the two separate ones, you don't need to do that line. You're just putting your canvases together, and we're doing a heart. So I don't have the measurements for this heart, but it's probably about 6 inches high, 6 inches wide, fairly medium-sized heart. And that is going to be the starting point for our background. We want to go ahead and grab our 3/4 flat brush. So that's a big wash brush. And we are going to simply paint this heart white. So a relatively thick layer of white paint is what we're applying to this heart. Thick because we need to be using this white to blend in the next step. So paint it all white, get all that canvas covered up. If you want to erase the heart, you can. Mine ended up being painted over, but I didn't draw it super dark. So if yours is super dark, you may want to lightly erase it before going over it. But we can take some of that blue and blend it over the pencil so it's not going to show up in the end. So all of this is white. I am going outside of those lines just a little bit. And then grab your light blue color. So on your palette, go ahead and mix your light blue and your white together before we start blending it. It should be a very, very light blue at first. And just take that, and we're just taking our brush and just contouring around that shape to allow that light blue color to blend gently with the white. So we're just taking that, and I call it the transition zone. So it's where the two colors meet, so where that white and that light blue meet. We want to go over that transition zone multiple times with our brush, and that's going to get that white to blend gently with that blue. So you want to try not to introduce too much blue right in the center. You want to keep that center super bright and white, and then just gently apply your color. And as you work your way out, you're going to gradually add more of the light blue color in there and not so much white, but if you need to use the white to blend, you can. But you're just continuing outwards going in the direction of the heart. So that heart is getting bigger and bigger as you work your way out. So try not to lose the shape of your heart yet. As we get to the outer parts of the canvas, the heart shape will eventually get lost, but we want to make sure that center part clearly looks like a heart. So we're just going around in these contouring strokes, adding more and more of that color to our brush. And with this light blue, I'm going out maybe about 3 or 4 inches with it. And I'm going to start blending in my turquoise. So when you're ready to, go ahead and grab your turquoise, start on the outside part of your light blue area, and then gently blend it in. So we have a color that just got many shades darker from that light blue to the turquoise. So if it doesn't blend right away for you, grab more of the light blue and add more light blue into that transition zone and then paint it over. So you want to just introduce turquoise very gradually. So if you put a lot on there, it's just going to spread fast and it's not going to blend. Little tiny bits of turquoise on that brush, and then make sure you grab some of that light blue. That light blue does blend nicely with that turquoise, but you got to work that paint a little bit more to get it to blend because it's a much lighter color than that turquoise. You can also grab your titanium white, so that white will help blend the color. So you can add white to your brush and then paint white in that transition zone to get that color to blend a little bit better. It doesn't have to be a perfect gradient. It's a sky. The moon is basically that heart in the sky, and those streaks around it can be clouds or moonbeams or whatever you want to it is. In other words, your sky doesn't have to be a perfect gradient. It would take a lot of work to get those colors to blend perfectly. So streaks are fine. You can leave it so it's unblended. The unblended look is fine. Again, if you're doing this on 2 different canvases, it's helpful to have your canvases as close as possible so you're working very much side by side and but you're going to notice that you and your partner have different painting styles, and it's not going to match perfectly, and that's okay. That's kind of the point of couples paintings, is to see the different, it's almost like your personalities come out in the paintings. You see the different styles, and the fact that the design matches in the middle is kind of the fun thing about doing these couples paintings. So when you get to very close to the edge of the canvas, you want to introduce your phthalo blue. So phthalo blue and turquoise are, they blend so well together. So you're not going to have too many difficulties blending that blue with the turquoise, but you still want to do the same thing. You want to apply only little bits of paint because it's such a dark color, only little bits at a time to that brush. Work your transition zone. So you want to paint over your turquoise multiple times to get it to blend. Try not to bring that dark blue too close to the center. You want to make sure your center colors stay nice and bright and white. If you are finding that your paint is drying too fast, you can add a teeny bit of water to your brush. This helps to get the paint to flow a little bit better. Just try not to add too much water, especially if you're working on an easel. Adding too much water to your brush will make that paint drip down, and it would cause drips on your painting, and that wouldn't be very fun. You can add turquoise and phthalo blue to your brush. You don't have to use just the one color, so those colors mix together nicely. And you want to take that phthalo blue and go to the almost most outer parts of the canvas, but leave the corners blank because the corners of this painting are Mars black blended into our phthalo blue. I am going to go silent here for just a little bit as I finish up this left side of the painting with more of that phthalo blue color, and I'm also going to leave the corners blank for our black. So I did not leave the same exact amount of white space on each of the corners, and that's okay. So yours doesn't have to be equal either. But when you get to closer to the edge of, or closer to the corners, you want to go ahead and load your palette with Mars Black if you haven't already done so. You want to go ahead and load just a teeny tiny bit of that black on the tip of the brush. You don't need a lot of black for this. Teeny tiny bit of black, and I didn't rinse my brush at all. Just a little bit of black. And go ahead and paint your corner, and you're just going to gradually blend that in with the phthalo blue, and it's just going to kind of fade off. So I'll go ahead and add black to this lower left corner area. And there's a little bit more white space here, so I'm going to add a little bit more black, but then I'm actually going to work this transition zone a little bit. If you need to add some blue to your brush to get that to blend better, you can. I'm just brushing over it several times, and that allows that black to blend with our blue. And then I'll do the same thing in the upper left area, and still going in that curved direction. So right here, my blue actually dried a little bit, so it's not blending. And if that happens, what we can do is we can wipe the brush off so we can get a lot of that excess black off. So I'm going to wipe it off. You could also rinse it too. And I'm going to load it in just the phthalo blue. And I'm going to take that phthalo blue and go back, add that in there so that I can work that transition zone and get it to blend better. So it's not so much of a color block, it's the black blending with the blue. So we have a nice pretty canvas all filled up with a radiating heart sky background. We are going to go ahead and use a toothbrush to splatter our stars next. So you can also do this with a flat brush. You can just add the white to the brush and just flick it with your finger. I recommend practicing this on a separate area first. You want a consistency where our white is just a little bit thinned down, not too thick and not too thin. So when you flick the brush, you have little fine dots that are not dripping, but they're also not super thick and goopy either. So you're just going to splatter it all over. It shows up against the black part. It's not going to show up very much in the middle, but you can pretty much do this all over wherever. If you want to, you can do shooting stars and little sparkling stars, but I'm going to save that for later after all the other things are painted in this painting, so I don't have to worry about painting over it or anything. Little fine star dots everywhere. And then when you're done with this step, you're going to need to let this dry. So this is a good stopping point to take a break, or if you want, you can get like a blow dryer and dry your painting or paintings really fast. Show you kind of a close-up of what that looks with the little splatters. I'm going to go ahead and dry this, and I'm going to move along to the next step, which is going to be drawing the branches. So after this is dry, we are going to use a piece of chalk to draw our branches. So the reason why I'm using chalk is because it easily erases if we mess up, and it shows up against the dark background. It's just a regular piece of chalk. It erases with a baby wipe, wet wipe. You can even use a wet paintbrush to erase it. And so you want to put your canvases together, or do what I'm doing if you're doing this on the one canvas. And we want to start in the bottom left or bottom right corner. And we're going to want to draw a tree branch that is very thick at first, very kind of low. It goes under our heart, and then it curves over onto your partner's canvas and it meets there. So you can have your partner draw it, or you can do your branch and draw it on your partner's, and your partner can draw their branch and draw it onto yours. So however you want to do it. But basically it's a branch that will meet on the other canvas or on the one canvas. You're just drawing it how I'm doing. And you're basically going to do the same thing on the other side. So they're kind of mirroring each other. So the branch starts out thick, it goes thin, and it curves. The branches kind of hug the heart almost. They kind of twist around that heart shape. And you saw me use a baby wipe there to kind of erase and adjust the branch. And you can do the same. It erases so nicely with that wet wipe. We're going to do the same thing. So this branch is mirroring the other branch, but it's crossing over it and it curves around. So really doing kind of these long, sketchy strokes. This is going to help us with painting the branch in. And when we paint this in, we can always adjust this to look differently. If our branch wants to twist a different way while we're painting it, that's fine. This is just the base, the kind of the roadmap of where we're going to go with this. So they are crossing each other in the center. I always like to make the edges of my branches a little bit wavy to give it more of a natural look versus if it was just a straight line. This one I'm actually going to curve up a little bit more. And they don't have to be an exact mirror of each other. They can twist differently if you want them to twist differently. Keep in mind that there's going to be silhouettes of doves flying above those branches. So you want to kind of make sure that you leave enough room in the center area for your birds. And you also don't have to do the birds for this if you don't want to. So when we have our branches pretty much drawn out, we are going to go ahead and paint them in. So the first layer is going to be pure black. So you're going to need to load your palette with Mars Black, and we're going to be using the 3/4 flat brush as well as the number 4 round brush for some of the smaller branch areas. So grab your big wash brush, load it in the black. Your black should be kind of thinned down with water so that it's easier to kind of get this to flow. And go ahead and start painting your branches in. So I started at the bottom with that thicker part of the branch, and you're just slowly painting it in so that it gets thinner towards the middle. So for thin strokes, we can use the tip of the brush, and then for thick strokes, we can use the full width of the brush. When we get to these branches, you're using the thin part. You can change the pressure. So if you press hard, your stroke would be thicker. If you press very, very lightly, holding it lightly like you were sketching something with a pencil, that creates the thinner branch. So you can kind of adjust the thick and thinness of this. If you don't want to use the big brush for these smaller branches, you can switch to the round brush for that if you feel more comfortable doing it that way. And then your partner is going to do the same thing to their branch, and it's going to cross over to the other side as well. You can add as many branches as you want. You can even add branches that you didn't draw with the chalk, so you can add more on those. So I'm going to go ahead and start painting in our other branch using the same exact technique. Start out thick for the base of the branch. So this one didn't end up on the same corner as the left one. That was kind of on purpose. You can do the same if you want. Both of the branches don't have to be the exact same thing. This one's going to twist and go under this one. So we can decide which one's going to be on top and which one's going to be on bottom, but for now it's okay to either pick up your brush up and go over it or just paint over that branch. So using that tip of the brush for your smaller strokes and using the big width of your brush or pressing hard for your bigger strokes. I make my edges kind of wavy, so I kind of wiggle my hand on the edges so the branch isn't exactly straight. It gives it more of a natural look. So these ones twist and go around using just the tip of the brush for that. And we can use our number 4 round brush for some of these smaller branches. So you don't have to use this brush for the branches. If it was working just fine with that big brush, that is okay. But I'm going to go ahead and use this to kind of show you. So it's kind of the same thing. You apply more pressure to get your thicker branch and light sketch-like pressure for your thin branches. So I'm just taking some of these bigger major branches and I'm making smaller ones kind of sticking out, but making sure the branches are still kind of going in that twisting curvy direction. So our branches actually form a heart shape as well. We can add some more down here. You can have a little branch just kind of sticking out and going its own direction over here. There's a lot of space on the bottom of the painting, so if you wanted to add some branches, you can. Those branches will have cherry blossoms later, so we'll have some bright pops of pink down in that area. And up here as well. Again, keep in mind that you want to keep the middle area around that white heart blank with not very many branches overlapping that area because of the dove silhouettes that we're going to be adding later. So I'm just going to take this round brush and just go in and add smaller branches kind of all throughout my painting. So you want to also, if you're doing this on 2 separate canvases, you want to kind of pay attention to the way each canvas looks because each canvas is its own painting. So this one needs another branch, I thought. So I had one that kind of went up this way and the opposite way to kind of balance it out. This next step is optional. It's kind of an advanced step, and I'm going to show you how to add color to your branches to give it the brown branch look, but also give it that highlight and 3D kind of realistic effect. If you're an absolute beginner, you don't have to do this. If it looks too intimidating, you can skip this step and just leave your branches as a silhouette. But I'm going to go ahead and load burnt umber and titanium white onto my palette. So I'm going to use the brown and the white mixed together to create that lighter brown color. And I'll be doing this with the number 4 round brush. So on your palette, you want to mix your brown and white together and you're going to get this lighter brown color. And you want to do this only on one side of the branch. So the light is coming kind of from the top, so it would be hitting the top part of the branch. So you, in theory, would want to put the lighter color on the top instead of on the bottom. But basically, just taking your brush, and I just am loosely painting kind of these wavy, loose lines with the brown just on the edge, top edge of it. And it is creating that highlight textured look by painting those loose wavy lines, but leaving that black still there. So we still have that black on the bottom part of the branch, and I'm not painting over all of my black. That black is our shadow, and we don't want to get rid of all of it. So that big thick part of the branch on the bottom, I created texture by leaving a lot of that black showing through and painting loose wavy lines. So I'm going to do this all throughout the branch You don't need to do this on the thin branches. That would be a little bit tedious to detail all of your tiny branches. So you can leave those dark, or you can even paint some newer branches with your light brown color, so it gives some of the branches look lighter and some look darker if you want to do it that way. But you're just taking this, doing twisty light brown brush strokes on the edge of your branch and leave a lot of that black still showing through. So up here we have a lot of those darker branches aren't really showing because of the dark background. We can use this lighter brown to highlight those branches, and they show up a little bit better when we apply that lighter brown next to or on top of our branches. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the other branch. So I pretty much decided that the branch on the right is overlapping the branch on the left. It can be opposite for you depending on how you want to do it. But I'm going to make sure I'm not going to highlight the part where the other branch is overlapping. I'm going to just kind of skip over that. So that gives it some of that layered look. So I'm going to do the same thing, just loosely adding that light color on one side of our branch. We can even go a tint lighter by adding a little bit more white to the brush. That adds a little pop of super bright color, but try not to add too much of it. So right here, I just added a teeny bit more white, but let a lot of that black still exist. Gives it that twisty texture look. We could add more branches if you want, so you can take your brush and just kind of loosely add some lighter colors in there as well. You can be as detailed or as simple as you want with this painting. Some of your smaller branches might overlap and go on the other canvas, and you can line them up if you want them to do that. And also, if you want to go in and add a little bit more black to some of the areas, like right here, added a little extra black towards the bottom of that to give it more of a shadowy look where it crosses the other branch. But that is basically it for the branch detailing. We are going to move along to the next step, which involves either drawing the doves, or you can print out the template and use a sheet of graphite paper to trace the doves onto your canvas. We're going to start with the dove on the left side, and we're going to do this, we're going to break it up into basic shapes. So with a pencil, we're going to start with a small circle for the head and a little triangle for the beak. The neck belly area curves down from the bottom part of the beak. Top part of the body curves up a little bit, and then we have the wing that's coming out. The wing is almost like a semicircle shape, so we can do a straight line, and then we can add our little curves on the edges for the feather edging of the wing. And then our tail dips down kind of at an angle, and we have that branch in the way, so I either have to make the tail really long so it overlaps or make it short so that there's a little bit of gap. So I'm going to do it short and did the little curve pieces for the feather texture. And it helps to look at something as you're drawing this, so you can look at my templates to help you. You can even get creative and look up different bird silhouettes, so you can change the design of this if you want them to be on the branch sitting or flying a different way. You can do that. So the bird on the right is the same exact thing, only mirrored. So I started with the head, circle head, beak, curves down into the chest area. This part curves up to create the wing. And then we can have, I didn't do the second wing for the bird on the left, but I will. So that wing kind of sticks more vertically up. This one goes more at an angle. So we're just breaking it down shape by shape. This tail ended up being a little bit longer, and we don't see the feet in this. So we have our basic drawing of the birds. This can always be adjusted when we fill the silhouette in. So I'll do the second wing on this one. So this one goes up a little bit more vertical. We have the texture edges. So we have our two flying birds. And next we can go ahead and use the Mars Black to fill it in. And I recommend using the number 4 round brush. So load it into your black. I like to kind of twist my brush when I load the paint. It gets that paint onto the tip of the brush. So you want to really use the tip of the brush for these small areas, especially that beak. If you feel like using a smaller brush, you're welcome to. You don't have to use this brush if it's too big. You can find a smaller one. So I'm just going to paint everything that I drew in. Sometimes it helps to outline your shape first and then fill it in. So there's no detail work on this. It's just filling that shape in solid black. That's the beauty of doing these silhouettes. They're super easy. With the wing, I found it helpful to paint the line edge of it first, and then you can do your little texture feathers on the edge. So these are just little rounded strokes going in a diagonal direction off the edge of that line, and then fill it in solid. If you mess up your silhouette, so I kind of want to change the shape on the edge of his neck and chest area, it should be an easy fix, especially since this background is white right here. All we have to do is dry the silhouette part, or wait for it to dry, and then we can go back with our white. So I just went back here and curved that curve more inwards, and I can adjust my shape easy because it's just a white background. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to fix the silhouette differently. And then I'm going to do the same thing to our bird on the left. So outline your shape, fill it in solid with the black. For this one, for the wings, I decided to do the little curved end piece first, so little curved edges, and then it worked also by just filling in the rest of the shape of the wing. Next, we're going to start applying all the lovely cherry blossoms all throughout the painting. So I used the color quinacridone magenta and titanium white. So when you mix that color with white, you get your pink. So you get three colors out of this. You get the dark pink, the white, and you get, when you mix the two together, you get a lighter pink. So we can use just that color. So you have two options. I almost did this entire painting with all little hearts on the edge of the branches. You could do the same if you like how that looks. I'm going to kind of show you how that looks on the tips of all the branches. You can paint little hearts. It makes it more of a Valentine's Day painting if you do that, or it could definitely be a year-round painting. And takes a while to paint all those little hearts, but it's definitely a zen moment where you can just relax and not really think about what you're doing. You're just doing little hearts. So you alter the color by adding more white to your brush, and that makes your quinacridone magenta turn more of a pink color. You can also do pure white or that pure magenta color. So you definitely create all different variations of those colors. So it looks really pretty. Little hearts going in all different directions on the edges of the branches. That's one option. And you and your partner could actually do two different things. So if one of you wants to do the hearts and one of you wants to do the blossoms, you can do it that way. You can both do the same thing. It's up to you how you want it to look. So that's how it would look with all the little heart edges of the branches. And I'm going to show you how I ended up doing this. So I just did little dots. I'm just using this with my round brush, and I'm painting little dots, little stippled dots of clusters of branches on the tips of all those branches. My video is actually going to speed up a little bit because this takes a long time to do, but it's super simple, and also you can zen out to it and not really have to think too hard about it. These little clusters, when I load my brush, I'm not cleaning it or rinsing it between colors. I just go back and forth between the darker color and the white, and it's blending together to create different variations of the pink. So you can do this in little clustered areas. You can make little columns to make it look like the little pieces are just kind of floating down in columns. You can also do this with Q-tips. You can make a little bundle of cotton swabs and tie them together with like a rubber band and use that to create your little blossoms so you don't have to ruin your round brush doing this. So that's up to you. So some of these are kind of falling down in kind of a vertical area. They're in different clusters all throughout the painting on the edges of the branches. And then what you could also do, I decided to do little hearts. So perhaps they're falling cherry blossoms, but they just happen to be little hearts in between the two birds. Also an optional thing that you can do with your painting. And you just want to repeat that all throughout the painting, adding a variety of darks and lights, doing just the little dots in clustered areas. And I'm going to go silent here while I finish this step over on the left side of the painting. So some of these blossoms, I'm making them kind of bunched down and going down in kind of vertical columns to make it look like it's kind of draping over the branches. So you can see your two different canvases. If you're doing this on two different canvases, it doesn't have to be even on both sides, but you still want to look at your painting as its own individual painting, separate from the other one, to make sure that your painting is nice and balanced as well as your partner's painting. The other detail that you can do is draw little sparkling stars, and you can do this with a paintbrush, but I found it easy to use the white paint pen for this step. So basically you're just doing like a little diamond star shape. Do vertical lines and horizontal lines and little diagonal lines to make little stars kind of all throughout the canvas. You can start in the middle with like that little dot and then do your vertical lines. You can also use the paint pen to draw in some more stars, perhaps they're brighter stars. You can even use your finger. Sometimes I like to use my finger and smear it. That creates that glowing effect. And then you can draw your star over your little glow, and that creates that star and it makes it look like it's kind of blurry on the outsides of the star. So it just gives some more interest in the painting, and some of the areas that are blank gives it that magical effect. And that is it. This is the conclusion of how to paint Love Dove's cherry blossom couples painting or single design. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thanks for watching and thanks for painting with me.